well known to most of us. For those who are with us and have not yet met Denise, her interest in photography started when her grandmother would share images from her travels abroad. And evenings watching slideshows set the seed. 35 years later, those seeds took root and inspired Denise to embrace photography, and more specifically, travel photography. She's been recognized as one of the top 200 women photographer who inspire by Nature Photo Guides, has had multiple articles published in a range of media. Her passion is to share her knowledge of photography while introducing people to the amazing landscapes, wildlife, and people all over the world. Tonight, Denise Silva.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So we're going.
All right, I will tell you, well, before we get started, I'm going to just say, like, if you see me or you don't hear me, it's because I got kicked out again. And if you hear me and don't see me, it's because I've lost the link. So just give me a minute and I can get back in. So, okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the waiting room and hope nobody bad comes in this time. And then I'm going to share it full screen, and then we'll just go group by group. We have 73 entries. And Cheryl, if you want to.
Yep, hold on.
I'm going to share my screen while you guys are chit-chatting about what's coming up.
Yeah, there's 15 in the first category. So in the first 15, hold on, I'm looking for my sticky with all my numbers on it. Here it is. Okay, 15. So it is first, second, third, and one honorable mention.
Okay.
Can everybody see the splash screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're going to
But don't start quite yet. Give me
Yep.
1 second so I can get that screen onto my bigger screen and put the people on the little screen. Okay, you're good to go now. Thanks.
Okay. Of course, now I have to remember where I was. I tried to get everything sorted in order, so make sure this is number 1. And we will begin.
Are you going to go through all of them and then we'll come back around?
Yeah, it's totally up to you. If you want to go through each one and then pick your favorites. You want me to just flash through them?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to give you like 5 seconds on each one. Does that sound good?
That's fine. Oh, yeah. Already good. Can you guys hear those gunshots going off behind me?
No. Yeah, I was wondering if that was here or there.
Yeah, it's here. Neighbor. I know where that is.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Okie dokie.
Is this screen big enough? You want me to make it bigger?
No, it was fine. I have it on a 27-inch screen, so I see.
Okay.
It's pretty big on my side. All right, so this is a sweet image, and I actually kind of like the fact that they make their own little triangle here, and you know, the butt-to-butt thing. I think that's kind of cool. I really wish though that the heads were up. Like just it's a timing issue about being able to wait them out and let them grab a bite and then they bring their heads up while they're eating. Because unfortunately, like here, right, their noses, the things that resonate for faces, noses, eyes, things like that are all downward facing. So it is a nice image, but you kind of look to the ground, and the ground is so much brighter than the animals in general that there's just a lot going on in it. So if one of their heads were up, both of their heads were up, it wouldn't even really matter which is which, but just getting them so you can actually get a face, I think would just make this a little bit stronger. I'm also not 100% sure like what the f-stop was, but the darker of the two horses, the horse on the left, he's a little bit soft, so I'm thinking that it might be fairly shallow. Looks like the horse on the right's a little bit clearer, but which case I'd probably like to see the horse on the right head up because he would probably be sharp. But anyway, next. So it's really funny. There's these gigantic set of white hay bales, right? The literal first thing that I saw was that patch of open dirt on the way back mountain with a house in it. It's like the first thing, like I looked right past all the white, all the words, all the color, and saw this like patch of open space in the trees. And I point that out not because there's necessarily something that you can do about that other than cloning it out in post. The actual farm property to the left of that isn't even as notable because it's definitely off, but at least for me, my eye went to the bales, and those bales, right, the word farmer, and then you've got these two red lines, and those red lines point right to that house, and then you settle on the house and the trees. So my advice to that would just be clone it out. Nobody but you knows it's there. Nobody's going to look for it. If you're a purist and you don't want to clone it out, just be aware that it's a detraction. Like you see it, which means the only other thing you could do here is move your body to take a photo and where that ends up being behind the red and white stripes. I also would like to see maybe a little bit less foreground and a little bit less sky. It really kind of exaggerate the pano quality of this image. So I like it. I think it's really cool. It was great that you stopped and took it. The words, the stars, the stripes, they're all nice and tack sharp. So I think it's pretty cool that way, that there's a tremendous amount of sky and foreground that don't really add value to the image. So you could just kind of strip it out into a pano and then really get the viewer to be clear instead of starting to search around in the sky and whatnot like that. And I thought I saw it, but it might have not been this one. Yeah, actually in this, I think it's, make sure it's not on my screen. Yeah, no. So if you go to the last hay bale with red stripes right before you get to the house out there, you go kind of straight up, there's a bird in the sky, and it's almost microscopic, but it ends up right there. That's right. It ends up being a dot, right? That's not really intelligible. So the end result of that is it feels like could be like a dust spot, even though it's not a dust spot. As a bird, it doesn't have value either. So I'd clone stuff like that out. Next. So this little character's sweet. It's really interesting because it makes me wonder what really is behind it, and is it really that dark? Is it is this like lit with a flash? There's some things that sort of made me wonder. There's definitely a catch light, so maybe there's a flash involved here. But his eye's pretty sharp and his face is pretty sharp. I think I kind of wish that his beard wasn't cut off. I saw a couple other images where I'll probably make a very similar comment. When you cut something off, it needs to feel like it was totally deliberate. And maybe this was, maybe that's, I don't know how long that is, but it feels like it might be close enough to the end where I wish it was kind of all there, or even less of it there. So just something to think about. But I like how he's off at an angle. He makes his own little kind of strong imagery of a triangle between his neck and his nose. So yeah, in that sense, I like it quite a bit. Go ahead. Okay, so I think for me, this image, there's a lot going on. So I will say that there's 3 or 4 birds in the sky here. Again, they're not like distinctive enough to actually be like you're taking a picture of a bird, so just clone them out. The sky itself, there's not a lot going on in that sky, so I'd crop it down. So similarly to what I just said, like there's a lot of data here that isn't necessarily adding value. I personally think these couple of cows in the foreground that are sitting down are the most interesting, but the challenge is that you have so many cows and they're all sort of the same size, and the dark cows don't have a lot of detail, and the biggest light cow is a butt shot. And then you have a house that has a light roof buried in the trees. And so the point to that is that as a viewer, I'm not really sure what you want me to look at because there's so much going on. Additionally, like you got a white cow, looks like he's laying down on the right-hand side, and a black cow on the left hand, both cut in half by the frame. So either crop in or clone them out because you're cutting the animal in half. And so that kind of catches my eye too. But I just think more broadly, like if the shot had been maybe zoomed in, like with a telephoto, and focused on this like little patch of cows where it's a black cow in front and then black, white, black, white, black, you know, there might be a different sort of, you have a place to rest your eyes, and there's like a pattern and repetition going on in that. And you kind of end up cutting out some of the distractions in the background. So it's kind of cool, and it's definitely farmland, but there's not a distinct subject matter here besides maybe the house. And I don't think that's what the goal was. Next. So this is a nice, it's, you know, it's kind of yesteryear for farmland, right? Which is kind of cool. The tonality though is kind of flat. So there's not a lot of contrast, and so the tones of the wood and the tones of the metal are equal to the tones of the grass and the tones of the beige dirt in the background. So I think I'd like to see a little bit, some of that drawn out a little bit, like add contrast in, you know, understanding that deep dark shadows are dark for a reason. So there's a place here where you could get some more sort of contrast and darkness and shading underneath this thing to make it pop forward so that it's not quite the same tonality in the back. A vignette might be good here, so that you can sort of, again, kind of corral the light to the center and keep the viewer's eyes dedicated to the center. But that's not about the center. The cart is really interesting, and there's so much there. There's probably a ton of macro that you could do just getting up close to the barbed wire here. But this like bright green pole with a white cap in the center is the thing that you draw your attention to. So you have to really like force yourself to look beyond that pole, and it's almost dead center in the frame. So maybe positioning our feet a little bit to the left, which would push that pole off to our right, and maybe use the hitching part of the cart as a leading line into the cart. It might just be a different way to frame that. So, because right now when you look at it, you look into this, you know, not historic, by the way, metal fence post. It's a little bit distracting. Next. So this is an interesting shot, and I sort of like it. I like the moodiness of the way it was processed. If it isn't cloudy out, it feels like it's got a glow to it, which is totally fine. But this would be one of those examples of this top of this wheel is cut off, and literally like 6 inches to a foot further back, and that top of the wheel would be there. So I think that, to me, that's the thing that screams out farm, right? That it's a wagon wheel. I think just moving back a little bit and getting that whole shape in there would, you know, keep that symmetry intact. And I don't know, I think it would fit personally, I'd like it better. Like, I think it just needs that whole wheel. The wheel being cut off feels like it was a missed opportunity. So he's cute. I wish I could see eyes. So I know there's a couple pigs coming up, both of which eyes are shown. So they, you know, I'll mention that there, but I think he's interesting. I'm not sure that I wouldn't want to say maybe a little bit lower down and across, kind of seeing him in the water a little bit, might've got an eye underneath the ear. It's all very bright. So some contrast to kind of create tonality, or a vignette that would like highlight our pig without like as much light around him would be helpful, because right now it's just as easy to look at the pig, not get captured by his eye, and then start looking at the bubbles in the water and then the rocks, the dark rocks and the light dirt, and vice versa as you move around the screen. I do like that he's framed though by this kind of arc from the pond that he's in. So I think that's kind of interesting. I would watch the highlights on the top of his head because he does feel a little bit hot on that back of his neck. So maybe tone down the highlights a little bit in the whole image, but adding a vignette to tone it down on the edges. Next. So this is a really nice shot. You see that the head and neck create another triangle. So that's a really kind of a strong thing. It really catches your attention and it keeps you focused there. I like that the background is darker. I think the light on the horse is quite lovely. But this is an example of making the decision about, is my focus point only the eye, and really kind of cropping in to accentuate that, as opposed to like cutting off the tip of an ear, because that doesn't look deliberate. That looks like it just wasn't in the frame and I took the shot. It's also like cutting off the part of the nose. So, you know, what would you've gotten if you cropped this into a square and like just made the cut on the ears and at the nose deliberate? You'd have to experiment with that because you can do that in post, but it is something to be mindful, because again, stepping back would have got at least the tip of the ears and more than likely most of the nose. And then I would have said, don't cut the bit of the nose off. So you kind of have to make a conscious decision to get the whole head or just parts of it and really get in tight if it's parts. With that said, the eye's nice and sharp, the catch light's sharp. I like the lighting on the horse. So, I mean, it's like kind of nicely rendered, but I just watch what's in and out of the frame when we're shooting. Next. So similar to the cart, the tonality here is there's a little bit more contrast in the tires and underneath this tractor, but the tonality is kind of flat. So I think a little bit more contrast would help work with the light. When you have an overcast day like this, it's funny because sometimes it's like, oh, I prefer overcasted blue skies and harsh light. And although I do, it puts the burden on processing to the photographer to accentuate the direction of light that you want. And right now it's kind of very monotone in terms of, it feels flat as opposed to like three-dimensional. So I think that's just about how you handle it in post. But the tractor is nicely rendered and it's nice and sharp and you can read it, and it's there's probably actually quite a bit of data here that you could play with to really pull out the rusts and focus the viewer on. Also with light like this, a little bit of a vignette would help because it'll kind of corral the eye down. Similar to other comments, if you step to the right on this shot, you probably get rid of that tree that's sticking up on our right. And the problem with that tree is those dark branches are sitting in a really light sky. So you kind of like look at the tractor and then you go and you start kind of seeing these branches coming in that don't have a tree to go with it. So if you moved yourself to the right, you'd only have mountain, but there could be a distraction on the left. I don't know. So if you're not able to do something like that because of something on the left, then get more of that tree and give it a place that it meets the earth, because right now it's like just randomly reaching into the scene and it doesn't have a place to rest. So if you just picked up even half of that tree trunk, it would feel complete. Next. So this little guy's really adorable. He really shallow depth of field, which I think is fine. The eye's sharp and just that rim of that left ear, and I think is adequate. You can actually see the photographer in the reflection in the pig's eye. The fact that the snout is out of focus, it's completely comfortable, because again, we will react to eyes. If the snout had been in focus and the eyes had been out, that may not have translated quite as well as I think that this does. So the shallow plane is also nice because we don't see what's behind him. We don't see either the pieces of the fence are nice and out of focus. It's shadowed. The stuff on the left is like not a distraction. You can see it, the dark spot in a white background, but you keep coming back to look at the eye. So that's well handled. Next. It's a beautiful fall scene. kind of feels West Virginia-y. I'm not sure that it is, but when I look at this, I see trees. So like, even though it might be that it's a part of a farm, I feel like this is about fall color. And so I think that has to do with the fact that it's a pretty wide open, wide photo. So I'm getting some outbuildings plus these beautiful trees. And I wonder if, maybe just positioning or angling different from the photographer's standpoint, if we couldn't have gotten one of these outbuildings that are here in the front as really the subject matter. Because when I look at this, the subject matter to me is the foliage as opposed to the buildings. So it's a nice photo. It's nicely rendered. Again, I'd probably say a vignette here. When you have so much light that goes to all the edges, it allows the the viewer's eye, to like follow the path out or follow the grass, mow lines out to the corner or whatever. Whereas if you put a vignette in, it kind of bounces the eye back into the center of the picture. So it's a nice picture, but I'm not sure that the subject matter is super clear. Next. So this is an interesting shot. Yeah, I love the sky in this, and I think that it's reasonably well framed. I might crop it in a little bit. I think you could like lose about 2 inches on either side and still get the brambles coming in and giving you that sort of eerie abandoned farm feeling. So in that sense, I think it really conveys an interesting message. I think the challenge here is that the farm itself, those silos are not in focus. So the focal point was either too far back or too far forward, because the clouds look pretty good. The clouds shouldn't necessarily be sharp. So I feel like the focal point is probably along that little fence line, and maybe was wider open than it needed to be, because the silos themselves, which your eye goes right to, by the way. So like, that's totally fine how this is framed. But they're soft. So you start wandering, the eye starts wandering around. Also, there's a dust spot in the top right in the blue. Sam, if you want to point to it up there in the top right corner. And then on the left corner right there, and on the left corner about an inch down, there's a black spot. Could be a pole, telephone pole or something like that. But be real mindful about what's in your frame. So dust spots are my pet peeve. People who've known me in this club for the 10 or 12 years I've been here know that I'm going to point them out. And the thing on the frame on the left, just clone it out. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't add value, but it is a dark spot in a white cloud. And so it draws your eye right to it, at least my eye to it. Next. So I like this picture, and I love the barn. I love the flag painting on the side. The barn is leaning back. So when you're taking buildings, and it seems like in this case, the photographer is a little bit lower than the barn. If with a wide angle, it's going to give it some distortion. So in post, in Lightroom or Photoshop, you can stand up the building so that the two front left and right corners are standing straight. So that'll pull the whole building forward. That will take away that feeling of falling backwards in the scene. But then I would say, once you've stood it up, I would crop in a little bit from the left, maybe not all the way to the like open door, but like through that first panel there on the left, because again, you're only missing a little bit of the building. So it doesn't feel like a deliberate crop, right? It felt like this is as much as I could get into the camera. And if you trim that a little bit, you really will be focusing on this kind of really cool barn and the flag. And the flag will be bigger because the framing will be smaller. And true, from the top down here, there's probably a solid inch of sky that you could crop out. And again, that would bring your whole subject matter much more forward. And then I would probably play with brightening this facing wall a little bit so that you really pop in it, because there's clearly light on that front left. So it's a cool shot. I like the shot. It just, maybe, like I said, tweak the architecture a little bit and tighten it up here and be really strong. Next. So this is nice. It's like beautiful yellow field of weeds with this red barn in it. So that's really cool. I mean, it's a nice kind of complement of colors going on here, but the whole image is a little bit soft. And so I would expect it to be, the barn itself to be tack sharp. Again, the grasses and all that stuff I don't really care about. But when I look at this, the building feels soft to me, and then so does that carriage and horse up on the barn. So those things should be like totally distinct. And then with that, you would be getting really more distinctive paneling. The board paneling would stand out, and you could really accentuate the sort of the old kind of grungy effect of this partially painted barn. So I really like the scene. I would just try to maybe take it again if you're near there, and just tighten up your focal point, because I think that's where this falls a little bit. Next. So this guy's cute. I like the the depth of field here. So whatever the choice was for the, not the focal length, but the f-stop, I think is good. This time we get a little bit of it more of the nose, and the eye is in focus, but I wish the eye wasn't, at least the one eye on the left wasn't kind of cut off by the wire. That's just about angle of the shooter, right? Maybe up a hair, you'd have gotten that whole eye. But even that's forgivable. I mean, I think it's a super cute shot with him sticking his nose through. I would again mention the tips of the ears. You're not talking but about a ½ an inch, and you'd have his ears. And do you need all of what you have of his legs? So just a slightly different positioning would have maybe cut the legs off by the ½ inch, but picked up the ear tips. And then I like the depth of field, like I said, in which case I would probably clone out that weed on the bottom left, because it is this hook that you follow in towards the pig, but then it curves, it happens to be curving left. Like there's nothing you could do about that. You could pull it, I suppose, but like it curves you back out of the frame. So instead of pointing at your subject, it's taking you out of the frame when your eye catches it, because it's lighter than where it is, and it's lighter than the pig. I do like the tic-tac-toe though. I think this is super cute. So that's it. If you make them a little smaller so I can see all of the thumbnails, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Better.
Yeah, better enough. That's fine. So 10 is first.
Okay.
15 is second. 8 is third. 13 is honorable mention.
Great.
So let's see, for first place, we have the title Pig, and the
Right.
photographer is Clanucarn. Clanucarn?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, I'm sorry about mispronouncing your name.
That's okay.
Denise, I'm having issues. I need a new class.
You
I need a class in Lightroom, because apparently I'm having some trouble.
need, well, you need to be like 3 or less, I think is how
know.
you would do it. But anyway.
No. I'm sorry, we were on number 1.
That you did.
Yeah, he's adorable. Or he or she is adorable.
Oh, second, please.
Did you want to say anything about your picture, about your pig?
Nope, totally agree about the ears, and just fighting with the father and mother who were trying to get in the picture. So it
That's
was,
funny.
yeah. So no, he was eating peppermints. So very,
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
where did you take these?
Hume,
And Hume, okay.
yeah, out towards the Marriott Ranch.
Okay. The second place
that
goes
was-
to this little piggy, Shannon Gilmore.
Yeah, she
Oh,
was talking
that's-
about that one.
That's what I was
That she
talking
was just
about.
talking.
Okay, oh, we got two picks going on. Okay, third is Mr. Ed.
Oh my God. Go get your camera.
Also,
Oh my God. He just dove headfirst into the thing. Sorry,
Who?
we're watching something in the yard.
Oh,
We have
gee.
a red fox in our yard right now. You're lucky if I come back. I'm sorry, gotta go. But he just did the like traditional like dive, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Please speak about your horse. It's not about my yard.
So I took the first pig, and this horse at Franklin Farms. Actually, that was a couple years ago. That was actually my first shoot with Loudoun County.
Oh, that's so great.
nice.
That is awesome.
I like the expressive eye in the horse.
And you got the number one as well?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I didn't hear that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that,
And then honorable mention goes to Tammy Smith. It's called Patriotic.
Tammy, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on. I just had to figure out how to unmute. Yeah, this was taken outside my hometown, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And yeah, Denise, I've heard you commented before on architecture and straightening line. I just keep forgetting. Hopefully, after I hear it another 10 times, maybe I'll remember.
No problem. I'm happy to tell you.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go to Monica.
Monochrome, we have 11 images in this one, in this category, and it's first, second, and third.
All right. Sorry, I
go
was
through
being
them?
distracted by my.
I'm just gonna go
Oh,
through.
he just left. Yeah, give me 1 second to get sit down again.
Yeah, I'm going back to the beginning.
I swear to God, we sit here forever and ever and ever, and we haven't seen a red fox in like, you got him? 8 months. And now he was out there, and we have a little bit of snow, and he was doing that like dive that you see of the red
Mhm.
foxes in Yellowstone. Oh my God, that was awesome. Okay, sorry. All right, I'm ready. Yes. Okay, you
Okay.
keep going.
I'm just gonna go through them. Okay.
Okay. So on this image, I really dig the leading line. Like that is awesome, and it takes you right to your subject. So that's precisely what you want your imagery to do for you. Was like, and I've been posting a bunch of vanishing points, so people who know me know that I totally dig lines like this. So I just think this is like really nicely rendered. I mean, it's a cool use of space. I think it's the right choice to make it a squarish, and having that fence coming out of the left-hand corner is a really strong way to use the frame.
Awesome.
Next.
What's the TV set?
So this is really nicely done as well. The eyes, so this is actually a little bit like what I was saying before about the nose being sharp and the eyes being a little bit soft. And it's not that it doesn't work. Like, I think it does actually work. That's fine. But you can see that the eyes are a little bit softer. But what we do have is like all of the ears, right? And the light and the rim light on the ears is really nice. But the light on the edge of the nose is like really cool. So I just think this is like nicely done. I might clone out whatever that white, I guess it looks like a lead on the right-hand side. I would probably have tried to clone all that stuff out because it's light. against that dark hair, and it draws the eye to the outer frame. And then you, from a viewer standpoint, then you leave when that happens. Your eye leaves the frame when you're on the edge like that. Next.
Yes.
Do you want to?
What, the pork?
Denise, I think I muted you.
Denise, you there?
Lost her.
Does not appear on video right now either.
Oh, wait, she's coming back. Oh, she cannot unmute? Really? Huh. I don't think I can mute. Why don't you
Denise?
disconnect and call back?
Yeah, you don't see, I don't see a mute icon on your thumbnail, Denise.
Well, she's using her phone for voice.
Oh.
There's a mute on her phone.
I accidentally muted her because I was clicking really fast to mute whoever that was. Zoom is really not that friendly. Stand by, everybody.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Jesus. I couldn't unmute. Like I'm hitting *6 and I'm hitting *6 and I'm hitting *6 and like nothing's happening.
Okay, let's work
So,
now.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's good. Okay, so Mr. Cow. So so this image, I mean, I like all of his friends in the background. I do think there's probably a little bit too much at the top of the frame. Like we could cut some of that out. Just to make him more bold. I think part of it is that he blends in so much. So there's very flat light here. There's not a lot of contrast in his image. So it's hard to kind of discern his eyes, right, from his head and himself from the rest of the cow. So I think maybe a vignette or something like that, or maybe using a brush and lightening up his white hairs would help strengthen this. So this looks like a pretty good, creepy old building, and but at the same time, because we're flat on, it's a little bit hard to wrap your brain around the fact that it's a three-dimensional building, right? Like there's a feeling of it being just two-dimensional, and I just think moving your feet a little bit so that you could get to the corner and you could see the front of the building on one side or the other would be helpful. Next up.
We hear you clicking.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm multitasking it. So this is an interesting photo in sense of it looks like a farm, but I wish there was something here on the post, right? So I wish that I could see a bird or even a horse in the background, even out of focus would be helpful. So I'm not quite sure as a viewer, there's a lot of leading lines. So left and right, the lines take you out of the frame. And if you look past the post through the metal gate, then there's a fence line that then takes you all the way to the back, but there's no place to really stop. And then you come back to the post and you're like, what's on the post that I'm supposed to be looking at? And you can't find anything. So I think it's interesting, but I don't know that it's going to hold the viewer very long. Because again, I keep coming to that post and thinking I'm going to see something on the post, and there's nothing to stop me from looking out. Next. So definitely farm life, the wheelbarrow, the hay, the horse. like paddock or whatever. Sorry, just lost the word. But again, I think from a subject matter and interest, I'm not really sure, again, what you want me to look at. So the brightest thing in the picture are the handles for the wheelbarrow, followed by the lock for the gate that goes on this door of stall number 1. The stall was the word I was looking for. And yet there's not, so it's like, okay, I see those things, but then what is it that I'm looking for? If there was an animal in the wheelbarrow or something, I think it would just be a stronger image. It is nice, for the most part, nice and straight. This right-hand edge of stall number 1 is a little bit tilted to the right, because you get more of the wall on the bottom than you do at the top. But, you could straighten that up. But I think it's really just about subject matter. So why did you take it? And it's not translating to me why you took it. Next. So this is a nice image. Sorry, sitting down again. It's kind of a little bit hard to tell. It actually looks like the eye may be sharp. It's really captivating in a different way, right? So I think it's more of a sort of shot of what's going on in this person's life in a day, and it makes you want to know more about it. What are they doing? What is all over their hands? What are they working with? And I just think it's really nicely handled. I would say that I would probably clone out that the weed coming in from the bottom left pointing towards the butt, because that's exactly what it's doing. It's pointing towards the butt, and it's really bright against the shadow, but without that there, and again, it's journalistic. So I'm just saying, from an art form, I would clone it. If you're trying to put this into a magazine because it's a journalistic story about a day in the life of somebody in this country that you went to, you got to leave it. But yeah, I think this is really strong, and kind of the look on his or her face, I can't really quite tell, is pretty powerful. Nicely done. So this made me chuckle when it went by the first time. Typical goat behavior, eat everything that they can find. So it's sort of interesting and definitely humorous. The brightness of the goat itself definitely draws your attention. I wish I could see a little bit more of the head, get the whole story, but that's a minor kind of thing. I will say that the roof line at the top right-hand corner is a slight distraction, because it creates a triangle in the corner. So what that does is it gives you an arrow, and that arrow is pointing you out of the frame. So you basically come up the leg into the body, you kind of see the corn, this huge bale of corn, which fan you out through the image. And then when you get to that top right, there's an arrow that sends you out of the image. So be mindful. The easiest way to deal with that is either crop it down or, just stretch the image and get it out, or clone it out or something like that. But be mindful of corners like that in any image, not just this particular image. But next. So here's our horse again. Essentially, basically the same image into black and white. So, my personal thing for stuff like this is I want to see different. It could just have been a different angle of the same horse would have been fine. But I will say that in this one, we do have the tip of the ears and we have the nose. So I actually do like that about this image, is having that. And I think maybe looking at this image and the other image would maybe what the artist tried to do then before was to get the metal bar out across the chest. And I get that. My only point before was then crop dramatically so it looks like it was completely intentional and that you're not nipping the ears off. But similar to my comments on the other one, the horse is nicely rendered. I think in this particular case in black and white, the lighting is a little bit different, right? Because the sky is as bright as the nose and the forelock and the mane. So maybe just work that sky behind a little bit to make it darker so that the horse really pops more forward, at least up in that area. So I just feel like it needs maybe a vignette of some sort. Next. So these guys are cute, and I like the idea of this image. I wish that the goat with the face, right, the facing us, it's all soft. The whole animal is soft. So the nose is soft, the eye is soft, and the horns are soft. But yet he's the face, right? So you start maybe here on the left with this nice sharp ear for the sort of the side face, the portrait side, the side angle of this goat on the left. And he's looking. And so he's telling you as a viewer, oh, look down this cool line to my friend. And you get to the friend and the friend is soft and his horn is cut off. So, man, if he had been sharp too, this would be like a rocket image, because it would take you from this one guy looking at this guy who's looking at you. That's a great combination of movement of the viewer's eye. But him being soft like that really kind of stops that motion. You kind of do it, but it's just not as strong. It'd be much stronger if the goat looking at us was literally catching your eye and holding it. Next. Okay, so it's just funny because it's one of the first, farmers in the series here that we've seen so far. I think it's a neat image. I like the hat. I like that all the rim of the hat, everything was sort of captured about the hat. And I can't tell if that's just softness in the background, but what I think it is actually some cloning. And so coming off the right, going up to the right corner is this kind of pretty dramatic line. And then also to the left front rim where the nose is pointing is also some more cloning. And I'm a fan of getting things out that you don't want in, but you got to practice on how you do that, because this just looks like you took a marker and filled it in. And if you can't get the cloning to be smooth and look like completely natural, then it's better to leave the object, because the cloning just detracts from the quality of the image. I also wish I had maybe a little bit more light on his face. So you could handle that by just taking a brush and brightening his face up some, so that you really kind of see him standing out. Right now, there's not a lot of contrast in this image. And if for this photographer or others, there's lots of ways to clone, and Sam and I can put together, just express some interest on it, and we can put together a class, a meetup that we could teach various ways of cloning for different scenarios. So I'll just put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Next, or show me them all, please.
Yep.
What do I have? Did you tell me if it was, I don't think I have an honorable mention, do I?
No, it's for second and third.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a little bit hard. Can I see 7 again? Just make it big. The number 7. All right, you can make it small again. Yeah, I'm going to make 7 first. And it's because it's so different, and it comes with it, it brings with it an emotional quality that's just different than the rest of the population. 2 is 2 and 1 is 3.
You gotta be shitting me.
I heard that. You're not muted if you thought you were muted.
Okay, so in first place, we have Child Labor by Masood.
Hi, this is back home. I was visiting my cousin, and the farm is right outside the village. And whoever visits him, he takes him to the field. I was behind her. My camera was ready, and my cousin called her.
Oh.
And they shot. That was it.
Nice. Teamwork, man, right there.
Very nice.
Good job.
Number second is Cattletude by Shannon Gilmore.
Oh.
Just a group of Angus next to a listing I had, and every day they came over to see me. So they were so curious, and I just have a thing for cows and cattle.
And
Thank you.
third place is Barn and Silo by Rick LaDuca.
Yay.
That's just a vineyard in Northern Virginia.
Oh, it's very nice. I like it.
Oh, a vineyard. Yeah. Wow. It's very cool. What's the winery?
I don't remember the name.
All right.
Okay. Moving on to
Intermediate color has 15 submissions. So there's first, second, third, and 1 honorable mention.
you ready?
Okay.
You want me to go through them or you want to just go through them?
Yeah, you don't have to wait so long. I just want to wrap my brain around what the population looks like. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, this is cool. I like the different gourds. I like the feeling of them tumbling out. I mean, it was just, you know, kind of good seeing on the photographer's part to even stop to capture the image, I guess is how I would look at it. This kind of stuff that you walk by every day and you don't necessarily pause. So I think that's kind of neat that they saw it. I do like how there's sort of a balance between the two buckets on the left and right, that they're kind of cut off at the same point. I can't decide how I feel about the fact that the tops are all cut off. Like in terms of cutting them in half is one thing, but also cutting them across the top, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I think I might be okay with it. Trying to decide if I would want it. Yeah, I don't think I want it lower. So either I want the whole circle in terms of that center one, or probably where it is okay. But I like the image. I think it's kind of interesting. I think it could maybe use a little bit deeper shadow, a little bit more contrast so that each individual gourd kind of pops out. Like there's maybe in between the oranges and stuff that there's the orange melons that they, there's like some darkness in there to really like make those feel three-dimensional. But other than some contrast, I think it's a cool image. Nicely done. Next.
Sorry, I'm trying
So
to
I
get
like
rid
this.
of the, sorry, I'm trying to get rid of my menu at the top. It won't retract.
Oh,
So hopefully
yeah, don't worry about it.
see everything. Okay.
I'm good. Yeah. So I like this. I wish the snow was thick enough not to see any grass. Like that's my one thing about winter is like I want feet of snow. So looking at this, I wouldn't feel any different if I was shooting it. But I do really like the big expanse. So unlike these other images where I was saying cut it out, right? When the horizon line is properly placed, it becomes the lead in. So in this case, the horizon line's on the top third going across. So you have this sort of feels very Wyeth, right? Like this whole meadow coming up to this really distinct subject matter. There's nothing else detracting from it, followed by 1/3 of sky. And so I think it's a well done, like well seen to like capture it this way. It would be very simple to have had less foreground, more sky, and put the barn in the middle. And I like that the artist here put the barn in the right upper third and then worked with the rest of the thirds in a way that highlight the barn and give you room to like wander. So nicely handled. The barn's nice and sharp. Lighting's pretty nice. So next. What a beautiful sunset. So wherever this is, I like that the barn is slightly off center. It's a little bit centered, but it's also slightly off center. Kind of throwing a little bit of balance and weight towards our left-hand side. There's a lot of neat stuff going on here in the sky. This would be one of those instances though that it's off center left to right, but it is centered in the frame from top to bottom. And seeing where the field has all been hoed up, I'm assuming is basically what's happened here. there's a lot of that. And I'm not sure that you couldn't get rid of maybe half of what's here and bring that, everything about the image would come forward a little bit. I'm not sure that these couple of rows in the front add value. If there was the horse there, the cart that rode through here, if there was something there, then I would say something different. But being that it's just kind of a blank space, I would go up to that second row and then have all the torn up ground, but bring the whole thing forward a little bit. But it's a nice image. Next. I love fields of hay bales like this. So I like the fact that there's this right in your face, gigantic hay bale in a strong position within the rule of thirds. And so that feels very good. I think actually even getting a little bit lower from the photographer's perspective to really make that thing voluminous in front of a wide angle like this would be kind of cool. But otherwise, I mean, its placement is fine. I would just also maybe play with this at a low angle. But that said, in the right top corner where there's this little bit of white cloud coming into the blue sky, either crop it out, like you could legit crop to the second black cow out, or clone it out because it is a white patch on the frame. So you kind of look your way through the whole image, you get the tree line, you go look at this beautiful sky, and then there's a white cloud on the edge of a frame. And again, anything on the edge of the frame that is an additive will take your eye out of the frame. Next. This is a beautiful barn, almost looks like the barns that you see out on Mormon Row in the Tetons, just that kind of shape. But all the different color woods and the lines and everything, it's nice and stand up. I think it's just like been well shot and well delivered for such a wide building on probably on a fairly wide lens. And yeah, it's nice. So the thing, I wish there was something besides the roof that was nice and bright, if that makes sense. Like, again, just playing with brushes, you could brighten up the face or the doorway or something that is the front side of it, because the roof line itself is a beautiful color, but there's not a lot going on there, right? It's just the shingles. So I might brighten up the front of the building a little bit to give it some additional character, but it's nicely done. So this has got so much going on. Images that really like keep the viewer in them have places for the eye to wander. So when you start here, you start pretty readily with the horses up in the front left corner, again, in a power position within the rule of thirds. And then you have this like sort of band of water in the foreground, which is the bottom third. Then you have like its own unique set of content in the middle third, going left to right. There's a horse or two out there, but they're not distinct enough to really hold your interest, but there is this sort of banding. And then you have the top third with the mountains in the background. The only thing I would say is that I think there's more cloud than you need. So you could get rid of some of the sky, come down towards a little bit towards the top of the mountain, and then maybe pull back only in the sky, the highlights, because there's probably detail there that we're just not getting because the clouds are too bright. So, but yeah, it's an interesting image, and you kind of meander your eye through it and come back and start the journey over. So that's the idea here, is to give ourselves a place to look. And even that valley that turns out towards the spires, again, it's just this nice zigzag for your eye to travel through the image. So nicely seen. Next. So another cart, this one intact, which is kind of nice. I wish it stood out a little more, because to me the subject here could be the sky, right? Because the sky is pretty tremendous. But I think that the artist is wanting us to see the cart as the subject, and the cart is darker than that fence. So you look past the cart to the white fence, which has its own character, by the way, with like boards missing and paint missing and stuff like that. So the fence actually kind of carries the scene, and then from the fence to the clouds or sky. If you just spend a little time with a brush, like brightening up the circles on these front wheels and the front couple of panels, that would keep the viewer from passing our subject, being the cart. But the whole image itself is nice. The cart looks like it's nice and sharp. So there's a lot going on and a lot to look at. I would just probably spend a little time brightening up that cart a hair. So this is a pretty scene, I'm sure, with the patients. There's a ton of horse activity that would be happening here, you know, headbutting and playing and all the other things that horses do when they're hanging out together. But much like that cow image in the first series, the first color series, the horses are kind of compiled together right there. So there's not any single one of them distinct. In fact, the most distinct part is the flipped tail here on the left front third. And then you have a lot of scenery and landscape shot. And it's a beautiful scene, and the sky's nice. You've got some good clouds. But our subject's really probably the horses. And unfortunately, any one horse has a significant amount of detail. And there's so many of them compiled together that at least for me as a viewer, I see them and I acknowledge them, and then I start looking around for other things because I can't really identify and connect with any given one. So maybe isolate a little bit like that cow earlier, where the cow was forward of the rest of the cows in the background. You know, try to isolate a horse, call one over, wait for some activity to happen. But all the heads are down but the one, and he's too small to really be able to focus on. So next. So on a theme, hay bale up close is cool, flag also cool, but there's also not really much to think about once you've seen it. So like you see it and it's kind of cool, but you know, maybe a little bit more to the side, so not everything ever needs to be centered. But in this case, it's imbalanced, and maybe that's what you're going for. But I feel like I wish I could see maybe the whole curve on the right. But there isn't a lot going on here. So outside of the flag itself, it's nicely done and the picture's been nicely rendered, it's nicer and soft in the background, kind of once you've made that contact. I don't know that there's much that's gonna hold a viewer here. I think you could get rid of half again the grass in the front. Next. So this looks like it could be a really interesting scene. I like the fog and I like the haze, but it also makes it a little bit hard to discern exactly what's all going on. So with a little bit of looking, just probably like standing there too, the more you look into the fog, the more that you see. So that's kind of neat and revealing. I'd say again, cut some of that foreground out, even go further pano on this, even from the top down, you know, just tighten it up and really accentuate that this is a long, broad farm that you're standing in front of. And then for the tree on the right middle, I would like right frame middle, I would clone that out. There's a dark, so it's just a big dark blotch on the side of a light space. And so once you've kind of looked around and you're seeing the cows and the buildings and the equipment, you bounce across the trees and you get to a tree on the frame, and then there's nothing to take you back. So again, watch what we have in what's in and out of the frame is extraordinarily important. Next. So this looks like a nice area. I will say again, like I've said in a couple of these other ones, it's difficult to tell what you want me to look at. So what I'm going to focus on in this image is the road. So I love leading lines, and I love them when they're vanishing points, and I love them when they lead to something. And in this case, you kind of get to these, the road turns clearly and goes over a bridge, but you get to these weeds, which are kind of bright, and you're like, okay, well, what's there? And it's not really anything. And then you have a bunch of like white buildings, but the white buildings aren't distinct. So you can't really see into them. So they're not going to hold your attention. They're just going to make you kind of bounce around. And then you get to a really big blue sky. So I do like the mountain creating a diagonal from the top left down. I mean, I think that's cool. I think the line leading road in is cool, but it's pretty flat and there isn't really a subject. If there had been a car or a horse or something on the road to that, then the other things would be less distracting, but there isn't really a place to land, and you kind of keep looking for it, but there's not a point of interest to hold the view, in my opinion. Next. So, farm in decay kind of theory here. I think that the way the barn is like falling in on itself is very interesting. And I think that there's probably a lot going on this property that would be really kind of interesting to shoot. With this scene, the most distinctive thing is the fence, the block of cement, and the gate. And that's where the light is too. The gate, the like light on top of the bars of the gate is very prominent and eye-catching, but that gate is running you out to the edge of the frame. The next kind of big bright thing is this block of cement where that gate is locked up. And it is such a clear and distinct focal point that, and dead center, that it holds your eye. And then you can't really see the cool barn that's falling in because you've got this wood fence in the front. So I don't know that this isn't, to me, there's like a lot here that you could maybe step further in, get some of that stuff out, maybe move to the right and shoot the barn falling in on itself only through the gate, where you don't have part of that subject matter blocked. You could see through the gate to see it. That might be a bit stronger, but as it is, the really interesting feature here being the barn in the background is really hard to see very much of. So this is a cool scene. I think it'd probably be actually kind of neat rendered in black and white, maybe make it like give it a even creepier feeling than it might already have. I love the little, I've never been here for as much as I've driven around Loudoun County. I think the little shop here, George's Mill, is really kind of cool. Like the bright color, it's very eye-catching and it draws you in, and it's in a very powerful position in the image. But I also totally dig this road that, so unlike that last road we were just talking about, this road, as your eye follows, it leads you to this kind of building in the background. And you can see a truck back there. You can see some blue. Like I would probably clone that little blue thing out on their deck. It's probably an umbrella or something like that, but the color is distracting from the scene. Without that there, this would be feeling like you were going up to like a haunted barn or something. So it's got a really interesting feel to it. I'd play with it a little bit and maybe kind of bring out the creep factor a little further. But I like it, and I think it was nicely composed. The use of the road taking up to the house is just a nice function. The way it frames the George's Mill farm house is cool too. Next. So baby farm, little dog house farm here maybe. Oh, there's a pig there he is in the background. Now I see him. So this is a cute scene. I maybe would highlight the pig a little bit in the back. It took a moment to find it. Maybe just brighten him up a little hair there, but he's well hidden. And it feels like the house here is really our subject. But it's a neat little scene. It's cute. It's nicely rendered. It makes you wonder what the bigger expanse would look like, right? Were there other pigs here? Was there, what is that building behind and stuff like that? So it's a kind of tight feeling. And I think if the pig was a little bit brighter, then the tightness might make a little bit more sense, because otherwise it's just a house and it's hard to tell. At first I didn't see the piglet at all. So next. So mail pouches are my thing. So yay, kudos to you, because this doesn't seem familiar. I haven't seen this one, and I used to drive around looking for them. So this is cool. And I get that you had to stand on the other side of the road to capture the whole scene. So that's cool too, but I would probably cut the frame, like, crop up to get rid of the yellow line, because it is really bright and it just takes you left to right and both directions go off frame. The white balance here is a little off. The color of the sky doesn't feel natural. And I'd work with that. Like it's hard to tell how this was shot. It feels almost like a cell phone shot, but I don't know that it was. And I don't care if it was, by the way. I shoot with my cell phone all the time, but somehow along the path here, the sky has lost its like natural kind of color. And it does feel like there might be some dust spots on the top right, so it could be a camera, but I would just kind of work with the white balance and then the cropping on this. Maybe even crop in left to right and focus only on the mail pouch, because that big white building is a bit of a distraction. Next, or pick them small. So what'd you tell me I had? One honorable or two?
One.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you pick 4 and 5 and then hit the Y, the XY? Thank you. Okay, can make it small again. So 1 is 1, 2 is 2. Four is 3 and 5 is 4.
Okay.
First one is Harvest Color, or I'm sorry, Bountiful Harvest by Fred Gillis.
Hey, Fred.
Unmute. There we are. Yeah, that is actually a roadside farmer's market on the farm. So I felt it was legitimate to show it here.
Nice.
And of course, it was early October. And it was fun.
Cool.
Nice.
That was up north on, just up on 15, bypass, you know, just above the bypass.
Gotcha.
All right. The second one is The Winter Barn by Tim Pennington.
Yeah, this is a seeing up near Gettysburg when I went up there a few years ago, winters ago, obviously. And I think what Denise said was spot on with what I saw. And except I also like the red, white, and blue theme there. So the colors, how they went together. So thank you very much, Denise.
Yeah, I like the red, white, and blue theme as well. Like it wasn't lost on me for that, but yeah, like it was well done. It just needed another 2 feet of snow. My 2 cents.
We can't all live in Montana.
Oh my God, my grass looks like that too. That's the sad fact. I wish I had another 2 feet of snow. But anyway, nicely done.
Okay, number 3 is Hay Bales by Jennifer Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. Actually, I would have loved to actually get down a little lower like you had mentioned. Unfortunately, I would have fallen into a ditch in order to do that. But that's kind of what I was going for, as low as I could get without falling into the ditch. So thank you.
I hear you. Yeah, you're welcome.
And the honorable mention goes to Bernice with The Barn in Tetons.
Yes, it was taken in the Tetons, and it was a day that was raining cats and dogs.
Yeah, there's probably one of those almost every day at some point in the Tetons. But yeah, so was that on Mormon Row? Was that?
Yes,
was that what it was?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, cool. Nicely done.
Awesome. Okay.
This category also has one honorable mention.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So similar to some other comments, it's interesting. It's nicely done. I think there's a little bit of softness here that I don't think the A and the 8 are tack sharp, and either is the lock. So not sure where the focal point was. It almost feels like the plane with the screw in the bottom right corner is maybe the sharpest area. So be kind of mindful of that. It's interesting, but it also doesn't really tell enough. So there's, for me, like maybe someone who knew this stable would know who resided in A8 or have more story behind it. I think it's interesting. I'm just not sure that maybe I don't need a little bit more in the image to really keep me in it, and then just, watch your focal point. Next. I like that it's nice and straight, by the way, like the lines and everything feel pretty comfortable in that one. Last one. So this is an interesting image. I don't know if it's the processing, like, does it have like a glow on it or something? Because there is a lot of softness. And it almost feels a bit sharper in the very back, along the buildings in the back. It also feels very tilted. And that might very well be that the land is tilted here. So that part I can't really speak to, but it does feel like it's all leaning a little bit. And that's a little bit disconcerting. So I'm not sure if it, and sometimes even if that's what it really looked like, you could just notch it a hair to sort of balance out this barn, the barn in the sort of middle of the frame. I like the leading line in, and I like the horse, and I like the color or the lightness on the horse, not the color, but the brightness there. But he's soft, and I can't see his head, so it's like a body with almost looks decapitated because of where his head is in the fence line. So again, just patience until he raised his head up would have him be looking into the scene, might be a little bit more interesting as well. But it's an interesting shot, and there's certainly a lot to look at. I just can't decide how I feel about if it's too soft from like an Orton glow, or if it's just a little bit not tack sharp. It was in camera as opposed to in post, sorry. Next. So these guys are cute. On our theme of pigs here. They are, it's a little bit hard to see them because they're so dark against the dark ground. So really what draws my attention are all the little bars, right? So there's the bars, which is probably part of their paddock. And then there's the crossbars around the ground. I think that could be handled just by using some brushes and brightening up their faces a little bit. But they're super cute, and I like how they're coming together. It's a bit distracting to have this piece of rebar in the foreground. And I'm not really sure, other than moving a little bit to your right, how you could shoot that with that being less prominent. It does lead us down to the pigs, but it's also pretty distracting because it's against a brighter bar. So I keep coming back to those bars. I think if the bars weren't as bright or the pigs were brighter, I probably wouldn't notice it as strongly. So next. So he's sweet. I like the vignette here. I would probably still brighten up his face a little bit. So the vignette helps keep you onto the goat itself. Really dramatic horns here. And it's a pleasing enough pose, and you can see it pose, and you can see an eye, and you've got like the whole foot is in. So I like a little bit on that back horn is out, but not end of days. I just wish his face, because his face is so dark, maybe just a little bit brighter and a little bit of brightness in the iris of his eye would really pop his head out. Because right now the whole thing's a little bit almost too dark, and I don't think you need to lift the vignette if you just brighten him up a little bit. But it's a cute picture. So this is a little bit interesting here. It is very different from the other things we've seen so far. And the light on the shovel itself is actually pretty dramatic. So it tells its own story about like sort of the life of, in a sense, farming, but gardening and the work that gets done. And so I think it's kind of cool. And I like the lighting on it in general. So yeah, nicely seen. So some more gourds. So I like this pile of gourds, but here's the thing: when I look at this, I see the gourds end, right? So the front 2/3 is the mid ground and foreground are nicely end gourds, and they're kind of in your face, and I like that. there's not a lot of contrast there. So I would work with that tonality, brighten up the whites, you know, give them some maybe clarity just to make them pop forward. I would say that on that big gourd in the sort of center front right, that white nib that's there on the edge, again, you've got that gourd stem pointing you out to the right, and then it's got a big white thing there. To crop it in or darken it down so that that doesn't take you to the edge and out. But the top third of this image is this cart or, you know, case or whatever box, and it's all at an angle. So the whole thing is tilting. Now, you would never have felt that if you didn't see that, you wouldn't feel these gourds were at an angle, because they don't feel like they are. And also that white pumpkin in the background is a super huge distraction. So, I mean, even without it, if you just crop this into a tighter square and it was all gourds, I think it would be a really cool image that way too. But right now, I go up the lines of these gourds that are all in the front. I get to this cart that kind of throws me off, and then I stop and I look at the pumpkin in the back because it's so bright. So I actually just think if you crop down and made it all about the gourds, I think it'd be really interesting. Next. Don't know if this is, it feels like Patagonia. It's where I saw gauchos, but it could be, I guess, farm anywhere. It's a pretty cool shot. I like the little calf here in the front. He's kind of highlighted, his head stands out against his relative, the dark relative behind him. I think the whole image is pretty interesting, actually. And I don't know if I feel like I maybe want it darker in the background, just a little bit, so you don't kind of pass your subject matter. If you just tone that mountain down and that gray sky out a little bit, that would just keep you forward in the image. But it's a cool image. I think square works here. Yeah, nicely seen. Another just really sort of more like an emotional image, just with somebody actually working the soil. And so I think it's really interesting. The light is interesting. We can't see her face. It gives it a real pensive feeling to it. So I just think this was nicely captured. Makes me wonder what all the colors are here, right? You know, there's a lot of green, there's white, but what are the colors of her dress and the things that she's I'm assuming she's pulling. I think this would be interesting to see in color, just to have that information. But otherwise, the pattern and texture and mood is actually really nicely handled. So good job. So another horse, he's super cute. This goes to what I was saying earlier about, you know, don't worry about the top of the ear. Don't worry about the nose. Get rid of the fence by getting in. And this is an example of that. It's kind of nice how the forelock here is like, you know, highlighting or framing the eye. The eye looks pretty clear. It's hard to tell, but that whole area looks like it's nice and sharp. The getting sort of the white of the nose, the bridge of the nose as a border here frames us. So we're not like leaving. We're not getting past the white. There's a little bit of dark there right in between the eyes, but it's not enough to push you out. And so you keep coming back to this eye, and the background is nice and dark. I would probably personally just tone the little bit of the mane and the back down. There's a pretty bright spot, and that becomes an arrow out towards the left, but I would just tone it down like everything else. If you didn't have that there, you would never leave this piece of the horse's face. So it's a nice shot. I think it's nicely done, and I like that it's out of focus back there. I would just tone it down behind the ear, just a hair on the hair back there. So this is nice. I like the leading lines in the field that take you back to the buildings. In this case, even though there's lots of buildings going on here, the one thing that I think is different is that you've got this hay field in the front that's been plowed, and you've got all these lines leading to hay bales that are stacked here in the barns. So I think that's a little bit interesting. I'm not sure that anything left of that last bright curve needs to be there. There's a bunch of content with this like big shadow on the ground. The shadow makes an arrow out, and I'm not sure that the mountain over there is got a lot going for it. So if you cut like on Sam's screen where it says OIS parenthetical, if you cut straight down from there, so you get the buildings, but you're not getting everything to the left, you know, you would just, again, keep the viewer with where the most content is. The other option would be to even stand a little bit further to your right to get the leading line of the drive going in to the farm area in general. But I mean, it's a nice shot. It's just, there's a lot, again, a lot going on, not a particular subject matter. So it becomes about the lines. Next. So this is cool. Jeff would have been spending all day trying to shoot the spider web. I'm not sure that it screams out farmland. I mean, it's a fence and barbed wire, but I don't, that may say farmland. It may just say big pasture with nothing particular going on to it. To me, the subject matter here is probably the spider web. Maybe, I'm not even sure. Maybe it is the barbed wire. It's a cool shot. It's very cool in black and white. But once you've run your eye around for a little bit, you're gonna move on because there isn't more to it. I wish that the beads of droplets on the spider webs were more in focus, because right now what's in focus is the barbed wire, particularly the bit of barbed wire way down in the foreground, which is really the smallest piece of it. I love the post. I mean, that's very cool and aged and everything, but I wish that the spider web itself was more in focus, particularly the droplets, because I think that's really the subject here. Thanks. So a nice creepy building. I think things like this render really well in black and white, so I think that's a good choice here. It really makes you curious about the life, what happened, where'd they go. The whole place looks like an interesting thing to explore. I a little bit wish, very similar to the comment I made earlier, I wonder if you had come around to the left and kind of got the corner a little bit, just to give it an angle, because right now it's very flat, right? It's got only kind of 2 dimensions going on here. It's cool, but I just kind of wish I had a bit slightly different angle onto it, because once I've seen it, I can't go very far. I can't get into it. I can't see through it. So it's definitely a neat location. I just maybe play with the angling a little bit. Next. So this almost feels tilt shifty, right? It has almost a toy feel. The trees in the background don't even look real, or they, you know, they feel like they're part of a diorama of some sort. The barn itself is like really cool. I like the scene actually. I like the effect, but it does feel very like toyish in the background. So it's very intriguing to kind of study. Well done on putting the barn in a strong place in the bottom right corner. And I also like the fact that those trees come from the top left down. So partly they go from the middle up and out, but kind of in fact, they kind of lead you back down to the barn. There's lots of sort of interesting lines as your eye runs through this. So it's nicely seen. So this is a kind of a trip to look at. Cool leading lines heading back to the farms, the buildings, and I think that's like really cool. And there's many of them. There's the one that the artist is standing on, and the ditch and the fence and the wires. It's all pretty cool. What's a trip about it, excuse me, is that the way the light, and I don't know if it's how it's processed or if that's really just how it looked, the way the wires work, it almost feels like each one is a slice of almost like a stained glass kind of feel to it, which is a trip. And so it's very interesting to sort of look at. But I dig it. It's kind of a cool image. I would say, and I can't tell, but it feels like there's a lot of dust spots here. So if you go to the main post where the wires are coming in, there's a dust spot at the top to the right. And then if you go straight across from there all the way to the last building, keep going, keep going, keep going. And right there's a bunch of dust spots. Go straight up from there, top corner, to the right there, dust spots. Come back all the way to the left to the next hot spot. I think all across the top there looks like there's dust spots up in there, and all the way out to the edge frame. And I point that out because they become a distraction. Dark spots, white subject matter. Just be mindful. there's some videos on how I used to do this when I lived there. I would do this for people, but I'm not there. So watch some videos, buy the stuff, save yourself $60 and learn how to clean your sensor. So. Next. So this is a kind of cool image. I think black and white was the right choice. Again, it's got this trees really got this great looming feel where it almost feels like it's going to overpower the barn, which I think is kind of cool. On the far left-hand edge where the wire comes out, the lowest wire, there is probably tree around the wire, but
connected to Jack Brennan iPhone.
But there. Okay. Do I need to unmute myself again? So just maybe crop in like whatever eighth of an inch that is to get those two little black dots off the edge of the frame. And then, if you could clone out the wires, I'd clone them out. They don't add value, but they're not, they are a fact of our life. So it is what it is. But I think the image is pretty cool. And I like the bright face of the barn. So the lighting here is really kind of nice as well on the tree and on the barn. Next. So I think this is actually our same mail pouch. So this is a little bit what I was talking about, moving around and getting it at a different angle. So we've lost really that building in the back. And although we do see this like little bay here with the tractor in it, at least it still resonates as a farm, right? You see this tractor and it makes sense that it's a tractor. So I think this is actually a better viewpoint of the mail pouch barn itself. And the mail pouch words and everything are nice and sharp. I mean, it's a nice enough image. Again, I will point out that there are a bunch of dust spots. So, please be aware of that. They are one of the easiest things to fix in post. If you don't clean your sensor, then you just need to take the time to do it. But behind the silo, in the clouds, above the roof line, and off to the right. So. Okay, I got 4 again.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. 8 is 1. 9 is 2. 7 is 3. 13 is 4.
Okay, the first image is The Weeder by Bernice.
Yes, this was taken up in Massachusetts. It's called Sturbridge Village, and they dress in the period costumes, and they grow all their own vegetables there and sell them in the little gift shop and whatnot. And it's a really neat place. And this elderly woman was sitting down and picking weeds.
Very cool.
Number 2 is Half Horse by Tim Pennington.
Yeah, so this is up the street from me. I have a horse farm, and I emailed the owner and asked if I could come in and take some detailed shots. So this is one of them, half horse or half the head, but it's also about half the height of a normal horse. So not sure it's a pony. I'm not smart enough on horse names, horse breeds, but anyway, but thank you for the comment on the bright spot in the back. I will tone that down for the future. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and I would say now that we're seeing it again, right below that, there's like a stand-up white spot right there. Clone that out too. Don't clone out the hair it's attached to. Just clone it out. So I'm giving you a challenge. But that didn't notice it before, but now that I'm seeing it again, that like is pretty distinctive straight line. It's probably hay or something.
Let's see. 3rd is The Gaucho, Patricia.
Yes, Denise is right. That is in Patagonia. And it was hard to actually shoot it because they came across at a distance and then came right along the fence. And so I tried to get more of the cows in it, but that's what I ended up doing with it. But thank you.
Yeah, no, I like it. And my gauchos, same exact thing. We were driving down the road. We saw them wrestling up. In their case, was it cattle? I guess it was cattle. And the car came to a screeching halt. We all jumped out, cows running around the car, banging into the car, and we're just trying to get the guys on the horses. I know the challenge, but
yeah, we were
nicely
lucky
done.
because we were already standing there and I was thinking, okay, this is a really boring spot. Let's go. And just then they came along. So.
Nice. Awesome. All right.
And honorable mention goes to Jennifer Gonzalez with Out Yonder.
Yay. Jennifer? Oh, you know what? She had to jump off, I think, for another meeting. I forgot about that. So, okay.
Okay.
Dang. I so want to know if that was taken. Does anybody else see the toy effect that I'm talking about? Like the trees seem pretty squat in the background. And that is an affect of a tilt shift lens. And it's also something you can do in post. There's some filters that will do that, but it's cool. This feels very miniature, even though it's a gigantic barn. So I'm curious what she did with it. You'll have to report back to me, Sam.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go through these real quick.
Yeah, there's 8 images here, and you get a first and second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you guys are killing me. Same.
That's it.
It is.
Okay.
This little kid is like so cute. There's just nothing else to say about it. That is adorable. Yeah, I mean, just pleasant. I kind of wish the fence wasn't there. Just the idea that this could be like the open range kind of thing is interesting, but it is kind of what it is. But our baby here with the hat on is really sweet. And I like the fact that the parents, probably, the eye is like right at you and nice and sharp. I mean, it's just nicely rendered, kind of a rule of 3, because you've got 3 primary ones and head in front of the fence, and the light's handled nice. I mean, it's just like nicely done. So kudos to the artist. So this is pretty cool. Funny that's the first time we've seen this. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure I would have put in an airplane shot, but I have a ton of farmland from the sky. So I think whoever thought to like enter this, good on you for thinking outside the box. It's a really just interesting shot, right? You could spend a lot of time just analyzing each patch of land, looking at how the houses are arranged, with the only place having trees, wondering what all they do on these farms. And then the river running through it is just crazy and unique looking. So the whole thing's really interesting. Nicely done. So I like this quite a bit. I'm on a vanishing point thing. I just posted my 30-second vanishing point. So this is a awesome use of vanishing point / kind of leading line to that tree. I wish that tree was like 40% bigger, or actually 200% bigger. Not you could do that, but my thought is, oh, that should be gigantic in the background. But I actually even dig the color and the yellows and the everything sort of about everything in the foreground is really interesting here. So again, congratulations on the artist. I think you could probably cut a third of that sky out and not have lost anything in the image. You'll get that tree a little bit out of center, middle-ish, just by maybe taking off, I don't know, like I said, about 30% of that sky. But yeah, it's a really cool image. Nicely seen. It's a great face. There's no way to look at it any other way. It's sort of interesting. I wish the nose was also clear in this case. I mean, the eyes are like crystal clear, and you can see these amazing reflections, and all the eyelashes and everything is really cool. And even the forehead and ears, everything's nice and clear. I just kind of wish that last piece would come in, which is the face and the teeth and the grass. It's hard to tell. I'm not sure if it has to do with the process, but there is a kind of halo effect on the mountain behind the head, right? So you've got this really blue sky, and I don't know if that was something about like maybe trying to soften the background. Maybe the whole thing was at focus at one point and we put some blur on it. I don't think so because the hair doesn't feel that way, but whatever was done in post created sort of a weird edging on the mountain. So maybe somehow think of how to get rid of that. And maybe a little halo around, not halo, vignetting to, again, maybe I wouldn't look back at the mountain if it was a little bit more shadowed back there and just stay with these beautiful eyes. But it's a fun image. Next. It's beautiful. Reminds me of Long Branch. I'm not sure that it is, but it's kind of what it looks like to me, that area of Virginia. But really beautiful, like layers, the clouds, the sky, everything about that whole thing is really nice. The fence lines leading into the barn, just a nicely done image. There's nothing else to say about it. It's well placed in the scene, breathable, nicely done as a pano, keeping only what we need to see. It's well handled. Congratulations. So these guys are sweet. You definitely have their attention. They feel a little bit soft to me. The wood feels more sharp than the horses, and I think the subject matter here is or are the horses. So that's a little bit disconcerting. Like I just feel like the focal point, either the f-stop wasn't wide enough to get enough depth, or the focal point's too far forward in the image. And I get that they were standing next to whatever they're standing next to, but it is a distinct corner. Like it takes you to it. It's metal, it's blue, it's distinctive and different than everything else. If that wasn't there at all, and it was just the grasses and the log, wood and the horses, that would all fit very well together. But these really distinct sharp lines pointing out of the frame, a bit distracting on the left. Next. So this is a pretty scene. Unlike the other hay bale, where the hay bale was really prominent and fully captured up in the front corner, this one's kind of cut off. So it being on the edge is sort of a distraction to me. And then I think to myself, like, really the beauty of this image is that wide pano in the middle where you've got this beautiful golden light, even the shaded ones. So I'm wondering if you just kind of cropped it all a little bit, you've got more sky than you need and not enough of the hay bale in the right front to my liking. But there's so much beauty just in the layers of bales, dark green, light green, yellow, green, blue, green, and into the sky. I think you could just make it a little bit tighter of a shot, and just the lighting itself would be the subject. Next. So old farm equipment, I mean, this thing just looks pretty mean and vicious, like teeth. It's very interesting. I think for me, I think it needs to be a little played with in its tonality, because again, it's a little bit flat. So the building is really cool. The thatch roof is really cool. The machinery itself is really cool. But at the same time, they all kind of blend together. And I think just playing around a little bit, you could really pull out the machinery so that it stood a little bit forward. And you'd just be doing that by making it a little bit slightly brighter than everything else behind it, and maybe using the green under hue, saturation, and luminance. Under luminance, drag down the greens a little bit and drag up the red a little bit, just those two sliders, and you would separate the color palette a little bit. It's very cool. I'm sorry, I know you tell me. You just need to tell me at the end. 2?
Okay, there's 2.
Okay, thank you. So I can't retain it long enough to know what the hell you said. I think 5 is 1 as you drifted over to it. Three is 2. And I want to do a third. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. 1 is 3.
All right.
Okay, we have the Pink Sunrise by Nikki as the first one.
Thank you. Yep, this was a long branch out there at the Virginia Arboretum, and just a really gorgeous sunrise in the fall.
Sure makes it worth getting up in the morning when they look like that.
Yes, it does.
Second place is Pat with the Vanishing Point. Oh, Rice Patty Vanishing Point.
Hello, shot in Thailand 7 years ago. That's how long ago I shot something farm related.
But I told you you'd find it in, I said, right? Go to Thailand. I know you've got farmland. So there you go.
Actually, the tree in the back, I just cut and paste. It was slightly off the vanishing point. And
Good for you.
But if I had more time, I would compose this. But no time, just cut and paste.
Nice.
Well, cut and paste is fine. Next time, cut and paste and make it bigger. Just saying.
Thanks.
All right.
And third place is called Lunch on Me by Gassman.
Oh, Audrey.
Yes, thank you, Denise. I really appreciate it. That was from a farm out in South Dakota. So I just was very lucky that they turned that the mother cow turned around.
Yeah, absolutely adorable. Like that's just the cutest thing ever. So it makes me smile. So I'd say put it on the wall. You know, like that's just super cute.
Yeah. Great. All right. Jump into monochrome. Whoops. Give me enough time, sorry.
That's okay.
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 I'm gonna make it bigger.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you. So this is cool. It actually feels very castle, probably because that top silo doesn't have its top, so it looks like a turret, but it has a castle feel to me. It's a neat scene. I like that it's off center. I like that the artist chose to do a square. The one thing though is because of the way it's processed, it's very tonal, like in one tone. There is dark inside that window, but the rest of the image itself doesn't have a lot of darkness to it. So it's almost maybe a bit too crunchy, which I think there's even a leading line here, but because of that tonality, the leading line is lost where there's, I think you could really exaggerate that and draw that path straight down where the viewer is like walking the path to this thing. And I might try to darken the blank parts of the sky, which you can do that with the blue slider and set in the luminance again, back to Lightroom or Photoshop in the luminance. Just dragging down the blue would darken the sky. But I think part of it is just the process here. It's a little bit too clarity, too HDR. So it's lost some tonality. I think it just needs some shadows, deeper shadows. Next. So this is sort of interesting. Just the cragginess, right? Look at the bottom of this thing. It's like a mouth. It feels haunted, which I think is interesting. So I think it's nicely seen and feels like a portal, one that I might not want to open, you know, just kind of has a creepy feel to it. But it's cool. And there's not a lot going on here. And yet there's a lot that you could just explore and create stories around. So I think that was well seen by the artist. So just a cool image, nicely done. The machine for this rice field, it looks like a rice field or some sort of flooded field, and the person are both sharp. The birds in the background that they're eating are nice and sort of soft. So you get a sense of the scene and the environment, but your subject matter is, captivating and clear and easy to focus on. I also like a little bit of reflection in the water in the front. The tonality here is a little bit flat. I think it's kind of hard to say because it almost like this, I'm not sure it's really about a vignette here as opposed to somehow or maybe using a radio filter to brighten up the sort of front of the image a little bit, because it does feel like he's a bit blending in back behind his shoulders. He almost blends into the field, so it's cool. I like how he's looking into the scene too, so nicely done. So this is cool. I love that silo is beautiful. And I don't know, I kind of just like the way this is placed. Now, this is what I was talking about, darkening the sky. So when you go to black and white, if you manipulate the blue slider, you can really get the sky to darken in the background. So it kind of pops the rest of the cloud and the rest of the image forward. I can't tell if where your mouse is, Sam, just slightly above that, there seems to be no, oh no, not my mouse, not your mouse, not bad. Left-hand side of the building, I'm like, well, Sam, your mouse is right there. Left-hand side of the building, so to your right, down, to the right. So there's no, that's my right. Right there. To your right some more. There's this really weird curved line, right? Now you're on it. And I can't tell if that isn't maybe something that got cloned out. If it's not, I mean, it's such a weird shape for a cloud. If you look everywhere else, that doesn't exist. If it is cloning, again, smudge that line. Anything that, nature doesn't make straight lines. That's a human thing. So just kind of be aware of, and if it is in the photo to begin with and it's not something you did in post, get rid of it anyway. Use the clone stamp just to soften up that weird line. Because at the end of the day, it's a distraction and it's super bright right there. So your eye goes right to it and then it's a shape that doesn't make sense for what is in the scene. So just be mindful. But, I like it. I like the out of focus weeds in the front. It kind of makes you feel like we're sitting in the weeds spying. It's nicely done all the way around. Next. So these guys, I like how you've got this whole family. Odd number, by the way, so the rule of odds is nicely maintained here with these 5 cows standing kind of tall on their, standing their ground for you. So I think that's pretty cool. A little bit similar to other comments, a vignette would go a long way here because these guys are so dark that they kind of blend in. So it's not much you can do about a black cow. You might be able to open up the shadows a little bit for them. But if everything else was a little bit darker, you'd get these dark cows surrounded by light and you'd stay within that bubble. To the left here, I'm not sure. It's kind of weird because when you have you have this dark fence line, right? So you have a leading line, takes you to the cows in the back. That's kind of cool. But to the left of that post is a bright grass again. And so what happens is you kind of check them out. You see this leading line and then you start looking and you get a gate, but there's really nothing over there. So you might play with the crop so that your eye keeps coming back to where you want it to be and not to the brightness on the edge of the frame, which would then lead you back out of the frame. You really want to stay within this part of the image. It might be that you even just get rid of the fence line. And I'm a big fan of leading lines, but it might be that fence line becomes a detraction of the image because of the grass being so bright on the other side, and cutting those posts might not feel right either. So you have to play with it a little bit, but it's a cute image, and our cows that are primary subject matters are nice and sharp, and I like how they're all looking at you, but the one who couldn't care less. So nicely seen. This made me chuckle. This is actually adorable. And again, in a completely different way. So if you think about the whole range of images we've seen, this one is again uniquely seen and different. And that's pretty cool. I wish the top right corner, it almost looks like a blanket or a towel, or I guess it could be the mane as well, but it almost looks like it has a harder edge. I wish it was just a little bit darker right there. Yeah, right up there. Just because it's creating an arrow, that shape is a triangle pointing up and out, and the handling of the like tail hair and the butts and the ankle hair and everything on these animals is like really well done. So I would probably add just a little bit of darkness to the foreground, just a little bit darker right here at the edge, and then darken that corner, and that would really set these guys off and frame them in darkness, and I think it's pretty cool. So this is just a crazy scene, actually. Almost feels like sand dunes, but then there's these like blocks that are clearly hay based on the front one. So it's just a really wild pattern of and motion and swales to look at. So it's pretty cool. Maybe Pelosi to me, like I guess it feels very Palouse now that I think about it. At first I was like, I wonder where this would be, but it does remind me of like Palouse type farmland. The square bales is kind of interesting because we've been seeing only round bales. I even like the one that's kind of up on that top edge all by itself, this little silhouette. I would say that I think there's half again too much sky. So, you know, the additive value of that sky is limited. There's not a lot of cloud in it, or there's no cloud in it. You know, I wonder if you just took it out. I agree that there's banding, and I like that it's dark to light, so it looks like the photographer added a gradient. But if you cut it down and then added a kind of a gradient, it would, you just push it down a little bit. Because what happens is you follow all these lines and then you get up and you float in this abyss, and I just don't think you need it. I think you just keep it trimmed and make your farmland the subject all the way around. It's just a lot of cool lines and patterns, so it's nicely seen. So is this really farm equipment? Do they wear helmets when they have farm equipment? So no, I'm just saying. So it's sort of interesting. It's kind of a quandary that the tractor itself is facing down, but the stands look pretty level. So it kind of just makes you wonder where he is in the arena. It's interesting. You've got the front is cut off, the tires a little bit cut off. It'd be fun if the driver was looking at us. I think shooting this kind of stuff, I love like demolition derbies and stuff like that. The challenge is always about lighting and the distraction of the people in the background. So the vehicle in and of itself is sort of interesting, but what I find myself doing is actually like reading, you know, the Snap-on and 5K and, you know, Agritane. And I start not really focusing on what is in the image as opposed to more about what's the little details in the image. And then once I've done that, because I'm not being kind of held in place by the driver himself or him looking at us, I start scanning the background, right? All the white T-shirts back there and this big white looks like a flatbed or a tow truck or something off to the right. There's a lot of other things that become kind of distracting in the image. So it looks like it's a fun time, but I feel like the subject here is a little bit kind of wonky for me to wrap my brain around for too long.
Okay.
Okay, 2 again.
Yep.
Yes.
Six is 1. Three is 2. I do want to do a 3rd again. I want 2 to be 3.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
first place is John with Fly Swatters.
Funny.
Johnny, you on?
Uh-oh.
No, that's
Might have
weird.
lost John. Okay, second is Pat with Power Field.
Whoopsie.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Here, let me go back to the
We hear
let me
you
go
now.
back to the butts.
Yeah, Fly Swatters was not my first title, but it was the one that I thought was the first G-rated one that came to mind. But yeah, that's Frying Pan Park, and it is actually a horse's mane up there in the top right. But yeah, good critique on this one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Pat?
Okay, same field, Thailand, 7 years ago.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's the only time I shot farm related. So, yeah. And the only time that I didn't do the overly high contrast and I got caught out on.
Funny.
There you go. Sorry. Yeah, all great shots. You guys did great. So. And look at that, Sam. We went over.
That's all right.
Oh, third place goes to Dan Gerard, Closed for Business.
Oh, sorry about that, Dan.
That was from the tobacco farm I went out to out in Maryland. And yeah, just like you said, Denise, when I was shooting it, I was just constantly intrigued by all of the detail in the wood and it just falling apart. And I was really surprised that the barn was still standing.
Yeah, it's almost hard sometimes. You see that, like, what would the bigger picture look like and would that convey, right? You saw the whole scene and everything, but just that bit of it is creepy and disconcerting, which makes it interesting.
Okay, now you have to pick your best in show.
Uh-oh.
Tough one.
All right. I think, yeah, I know I'm struggling. Like, any one of them, they're all good. So, like, that's what makes it hard. But I think I'm going with number one, Good Take.
Really? Oh.
He's cute. He's like, the eyes are really nice and, just different.
Awesome.
Okay.
Now we get to stare at him.
That.
That's so cool, Bob.
Thank you.
You haven't, and this is
yeah.
You've been, away for a bit, so you coming back and winning. That's really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, when you do cybersecurity.
Yeah. Glad you're back. Well
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Yeah,
well,
super adorable.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I saw a bunch of chats going on. I'm hoping everybody talked to each other and figured it out, whatever they were talking about. So, anybody have anything?
Yeah, all that
else?
stuff is there.
Huh?
Everything there got handled.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm just going to stay on with the board members so we can have a quick chat, and then we'll see everybody at the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody.
That was all really good.
Thanks, Denise. Bye.
Thank you. Take care, you guys.
Bye. Thank you, Denise.
Bye.